Hey everyone, it's Scott Hansen from NFL Red Zone reminding you to watch Sports Ballers, the podcast that gets you caught up on everything Washington sports and beyond. Hey everyone, it's Scott Hansen from NFL Red Zone reminding you to watch Cory on Sports Ballers, the podcast that gets you caught up on everything Washington sports and beyond.
This is episode 163.
This is episode 163.
Suppose we've done this a few times.
We can't seem to get it together, but here we go. Hello and welcome to episode 163 of the Sports Bars podcast. I'm Cory Puffett, joined as always by Urban Meyer and Evan Ash. A little bit of a hiccup, opens the wrong second audio file. And
I didn't realize that it was just your show. Like, we're watching Cory Puffett on Sports Ballers, and I'm just like, okay, cool, we get to take the week off this week. I love it. I'm going to go home.
Yeah, I get to go eat dinner
baseball
now instead of being hungry till 10:30.
Exactly. I feel like...
well, now you know that I edited my name out for all of the intros up to this
I already
point.
knew that because Rashonda
know.
showed me the video before you got it. So I was well aware of all of that. But yeah, it's funny because it reminds me of Johnny Holiday when he was supposed to do Maryland's whatever radio show with Mark Turgeon. And before the show started at Buffalo Wild Wings, he was basically like, I don't even want to do this show today. I just want to go to dinner. And I was just like, hey, that could be us today. We could just bail. And Cory can wax whatever about his Yankees losing, among other things.
Unceremoniously bounced from the playoffs.
Yes. So now that we are through the hiccup of the early show, let's go ahead and get into tonight's show. And we will start with Major League Baseball. I don't know if you guys wanted to say anything about your Orioles before we get to my Yankees.
I mean, season's over, and that's probably a good thing for our mental health because watching the Orioles is brutal most of the time. So, but I guess they finished 52 and 110, and they managed to somehow. I didn't even think this was possible heading into the weekend. They managed to somehow get the number one pick back, which
they stole it from the Diamondbacks.
Yeah, or the Diamondbacks stole it from themselves by winning too much, I guess. But
so what I did not know was that if you have the same record, that the tiebreaker is your record from the prior season. And then if you still have the same record there, which was the case for the Orioles and the Diamondbacks somehow, you then go back to the 2019 season and look at their records. How does that make sense?
You would think it would be the other way around if they're going to do it that way, so that they're not rewarding the same team for being bad twice. Right, like you would think
that,
it's like,
or you base it on strength of schedule this year,
or run differential, or something sane.
Yeah, something like that. Something that this year's team was in control of, not last year's team, much less the year before that.
Team, yeah.
Good lord. So the Orioles season is over. The Yankees season is also over, and I don't know who put the frowny face in the chat. That must have been Evan, because
no, I did that.
Oh, you did that?
Yeah.
Why?
Because I knew you'd be reading it and you might be sad.
Well, I'm quite honestly not.
I know you kind of mentioned that like a week or two ago, that you were kind of happy to be done.
Well, I mentioned 2 weeks ago on the show that I was less than enthused by the idea of seeing Domingo Germán pitch in the playoffs. But quite frankly, my relief goes beyond that. And I know this is going to sound very first world problems-ish because it is a first world problem. You know, as a Yankees fan, I sort of live in the quote unquote first world of baseball fandom because I've got a team that always spends money. And that's kind of nice, usually. You know, I mean, when you have a team that doesn't spend money, you don't really expect them to be very good most of the time. Now, on the flip side, when they are good, you get to be really excited because you weren't supposed to be good. When you have a team that is spending a buttload of money year in and year out, and quite frankly doesn't have much to show for it of late, it gets a little bit frustrating. Now, to be fair, the Yankees have still been pretty competitive over the past decade plus since their last World Series win. Like, I can't complain too much about a lack of success. Yeah, we haven't won the World Series. Yeah, we haven't even been to the World Series since 2009, but we've been competitive. We've been in the playoffs. This year, though, was so maddening because we had a team that, when they were playing well, could beat anybody. I mean, we could have beaten the Giants on a given night when we were on, but we also could very well lose to the Diamondbacks and did multiple times lose to the Orioles this season, which is something that we really shouldn't have. Now, you play 19 games against the Orioles, you expect to lose a couple, just, get, bad pitcher matchup, a few lucky bounces or rolls or, a couple home runs that don't go your way. But we lost to the Orioles a lot more than we should have this year.
8 times.
And if we had gone up against the Diamondbacks, we would not have swept them in a series. There's no way. Because we could be just as cold as we could be hot. And honestly, I don't know how we won 90 games this year. It doesn't seem possible based on the way that we played all season long.
Well, the thing is, the Pythagorean math for the Yankees was projecting them, based off their run differential, to only win 86 games. So you're right to feel like, how the hell did this team win 92 games? Because by the math, they shouldn't have. They should have been an 86-win team. But
And honestly, 86 even would have felt a little bit high to me. But, when you look at whether a team deserves to be in the playoffs, you want to have a team that, they can go into any game and you can feel like, all right, we really have a shot at winning this game. We might not, but we should be able to win this game. The Yankees, if we had won last night against the Red Sox and we had gone into the ALDS, every night I would have been looking at it like, we're going to lose this game. We're going to lose. That is the kind of postseason stress that I don't want to live with. Like, you're always stressed when your team is in the postseason because you want them to win, you want them to advance and move on. But there's a difference between the stress of, all right, we can do this, I just don't know if we're going to, and the stress of, I just don't think that's going to happen. And yet I still have to sit here and watch and support my team and pull my hair out as they're doing badly, even though I fully expect them to do poorly. So from that standpoint, I'm relieved. Now, after the game, our manager, at least for now, Aaron Boone,
the current manager,
had a very interesting comment about the fact that the rest of the league has caught up to us and we have our work cut out for us. And no doubt we have our work cut out for us. We got to get our crap together. But the rest of the league has caught up to us. I'm sorry, but to say that somebody has caught up to you, there's a pretty heavy implication there that you were ahead of them to begin with. And as I already mentioned, we haven't won a World Series since 2009. We haven't won an American League pennant since 2009. Who has caught us? Like, who was behind us?
Like 10 years ago they caught you. Yeah,
Sure. But Boone was not here 10 years ago, and so that quote also implies that they've caught us since he's been here. What are you talking about, Boone? Mm-hmm. We are not the class of the league. We're not the class of the American League. We are
not even the class of the American League East.
Right. I mean, what? I know we were in the playoffs last year, but were we even a top 5 seed in the playoffs last year?
I don't remember.
I don't think we were.
8
I don't
team
think
bracket was
right.
Weird, yeah.
But I don't think that if it had been a normal 5-team per league bracket, if I remember correctly, we would not have been in last year.
There were times where it looked like the Yankees wouldn't make it in, even with 8 teams getting in. Like they heated up towards the end of the season, but
which is why I feel like we probably got one of those last 3 spots. Now, it's possible that we jumped a couple other people or whatever. I don't think we did. And regardless, we did not play all season like a team that deserved to be in the playoffs, regardless of whether there were 5 or 8 teams. Same, quite frankly, as this year.
The Yankees were 33-27 last year.
Yeah.
So they finished second in the East. See if I can get the whole league. But
I don't know what the issue is, but I have to imagine that it's got to be a mixture of managing and scouting. Because our scouting department we don't have anything in our farm system. Our farm system is trash. It's trash. It's been trash for a long time, but it's more trash now than it's been in probably 5 years or so. We are paying a buttload of money. There's a buttload of money on our payroll. I don't know what we're getting for it. Certainly not wins. Certainly not pennants.
Well, the thing is, I actually took a look at this a couple hours before we started here, and the Yankees' payroll in 2022, if you include expected arbitration payments to obviously Aaron Judge, people like that, their payroll coming into next year, even with some of the free agents leaving, is only about $10 million less than it is right now.
Jeez.
Like it's projected to be around $218 million, which I believe is still above the luxury tax threshold. And with the new CBA, I'm not expecting a salary cap to be implemented, obviously, but there could be more stringent penalties for luxury tax threshold violations, if you will. And that could discourage teams like the Yankees or other big market teams from spending above that mark. So there might be some austerity going on there, which is not going to help the Yankees' cause because the guys that they would have to cut or they would be interested in cutting are cheap anyway. So the guys they can't get rid of, you can't get rid of Stanton. You can't get rid of Cole, and not that you would want to anyway. Those are 2 or 3 best players at this point. And Aaron Judge is going to be a free agent in 2023, so you're going to have to pay him a boatload of money eventually. Mm-hmm. And he's going to be making a lot more money next year off of arbitration than he did this year because ARB 3 versus ARB 2 is about $10 million a lot of times. So it's going to get worse payroll-wise. And honestly, I think the Yankees' biggest problem was their younger players that looked good in 2018 and 2019 frankly sucked this year. Gio Urshela had a bad year. Gary Sanchez typically is bad and was on brand bad this year too.
Gleyber Torres was not.
He was the worst one by far. Like he looked like a potential MVP candidate a couple years ago, and then he was barely above replacement level this year. And I don't know if there's hope for reclamation with those guys or if this is just what they're gonna be. But if this is what they're gonna be, the Yankees are screwed because the Blue Jays are coming. The Rays aren't going anywhere. The Red Sox aren't going anywhere. And outside of the American League East in the wild card hunt, frankly, the Mariners aren't going anywhere either. They're an up-and-coming team with a lot of young talent. The Astros and the White Sox aren't going anywhere either. The Yankees look like they're on the downward trend and with no real way to right the ship with a bunch of guys that are getting paid a ton of money that are heading into their 30s, like Garrett Cole, like Aaron Judge. Giancarlo Stanton's been there.
No youth movement to expect from the farm system. So, the Yankees are definitely in deep trouble right now. I don't know how much you guys have to say about the actual game last night. I had an inkling that it was over when Garrett Cole gave up 2 runs in the first inning. I had an inkling that it was over when Giancarlo Stanton took 14 and a half seconds to get to first base on that hit off of the monster early in the game. Because you see him get that hit, and recently he's really been a late in the game hitter, right? Like he comes through late in the game after having some really bad at bats early. So for him to get that hit early, I'm like, well, we got nowhere to go but up. But as soon as he trotted out to first base and turned what should have been a double into a single, I'm like, okay, well, karma's going to bite him in the ass. And then I really knew it was over in the 6th inning, when in the top of the inning, the Yankees scored 1 run, but then with 1 out, we decide to send Judge, and he gets thrown out at the plate on another hit off of the monster. By Stanton. That I think was Kike Hernandez fielded and was able to get into the shortstop who then turned around. Made a nice relay throw home to gun down Judge. And as soon as we got to that point where now we've got a runner on first with 2 outs, we weren't going to score another run. So when we gave up a 4th run in the bottom of that inning to go down 4-1, I turned the game off. I didn't even watch the last 3 innings because I knew I was just, killing myself by keeping it on at that point. So I don't know if you guys had any other thoughts, but
Yeah, kind of. I first, like, I gotta make a little bit of fun of John Sterling for completely blowing the call on the Stanton single off
Right.
the wall, where he's like, "What did I do wrong?" I'm like, well, you didn't notice
Well,
that
the
the ball
ball's in
landed
play,
in play.
so-
You didn't
Right.
notice that part, that the ball landed in play after it hit off the wall. The left fielder fielded it and threw it into the infield. That's what you missed. And apparently ESPN blew the call too, but not nearly as bad, which is kind of what you expect because the Yankees radio call, he's looking for it to be a home run. He's
Right, yeah.
begging for it to be a home run. But yeah, you're right, because the Red Sox made a big mistake, I thought, when they hooked Eovaldi when they did. I mean, he gave up a home run, a ball that looped around the pesky pole to Rizzo, and then he gave up an infield single to Aaron Judge. Like, that's not because he made a bad pitch. It was just a lucky hit. And so clearly the stuff was still there, and he had only thrown 71 pitches, and he's getting hooked in the middle of the 6th inning, and the Red Sox bullpen stinks. So I'm like, wow, you are really opening the door for the middle of the Yankees lineup here with Giancarlo Stanton, who's been red hot in September, hitting key bomb after key bomb, keeping the Yankees season alive pretty much by himself. You're bringing him up as the tying run, and you're not going to have your dude that's been throwing gas all game pitching to him. You're going to bring in not only just a reliever out of your bad bullpen, but one of your worst relievers to pitch to him. And they got the result that was expected. He got shelled. He gave up a huge double off the wall. It's just that Judge and the Yankees base running bailed him out because that's what the Yankees have done all season. They're constantly getting thrown out on the base pads. I mean, that's just unacceptable. And I realized
I don't know who our third base coach is, but he needs to be fired yesterday.
Nevin.
Because there have been so many instances of him sending guys home who had no business going home,
And it was
then
a late
getting thrown
send.
out by miles,
Yeah.
like plural
This was
miles.
close. This was a close play. But the weird thing
It
was,
wasn't close.
This was not close. The ball beat him by a country mile. Judge just made a nice job to try
Yeah,
and
made a
actually
nice
make
little
it
slide,
look
yeah.
closer than it was.
Yeah, like he
the
was
ball was
definitely
there
out. He
so
was
far
dead
ahead
beat.
of him.
But the explanation that bothered me was the fact that, okay, if you're going to be aggressive sending a guy, then send him. But the third base coach waved him in way late. Like, Judge was rounding the bag, probably thinking, okay, he's not sending me, so I'm going to have to hold up. And then he starts waving him home because, and apparently this was the reason, according to Aaron Boone, he saw the throw come in from Kike Hernandez, and he thought that it would be an in-between hop to Xander Bogaerts, and that the hop might eat him up. A professional shortstop is going to get eaten up by an in-between hop. And then Aaron Boone said, but Xander Bogaerts positioned himself, in a way to field the hop on a long hop so he could catch it cleanly. I'm
no
like,
duh.
that's what little leaguers know to do.
Oh, that's Tommy Mansky stuff, right? With the back-to-back championships, like, you think a major league player, they can execute a
Right,
relay.
and you're over here with a surprised Pikachu face.
Exactly. It wasn't even like it was, like you guys said, it was a couple of good throws, but it wasn't super close as far as the ball getting there. It required perfect execution, but these are professional baseball players. Perfect execution is what they do. A ground ball to shortstop requires perfect execution. The guy has to throw the ball right to the target in order to get him out. But he's expected to do so every time because he's a damn pro. So I don't, like, everybody's like, it takes a perfect throw to get him home. I'm like, these are perfect players. They're major leaguers. They're supposed to be able to make that throw. We're not talking about putting the ball on a dime from 300 feet away. We're talking about a relay from 200. When I played baseball, one of the first drills they had us do in tryouts was they put us 200 feet in the outfield and said, here, throw the ball home. We're going to time your throw. If you don't hit the target, we don't even record the time because stop wasting my time.
If Aaron Judge can make perfect throw after perfect throw from deep right field to second base to gun guys down, I'm pretty sure Xander Bogaerts can handle that.
It's expected. This is par for the course for professional baseball players. This idea that we're shocked when players make perfect throws when they're the damn pros, it never ends with me. Like, I understand pulling that in Little League or high school baseball
And sure,
even.
show appreciation for these good throws, but
Because
don't
that's what we're
act like
watching.
it's something that you shouldn't expect from these guys. Like, they should be perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I expect the throw to be on target. When the throw pulls the catcher up the line, I'm like, come on, dude, make a better throw. I'm not saying, oh, well, that just happens all the time. No, it doesn't. You're supposed to make a good throw.
Xander Bogaerts was a starting shortstop for the American League in the All-Star game. So, not only is he in the major leagues playing shortstop, but he was one of the two
He's kind of
starters for the All-Star team. Like, what are we even talking about here? We thought it was going to be a bad throw and he's going to boot it. Like, you can assume he's going to boot the ball like that. That's nonsense.
You're putting your season in jeopardy to assume that a professional baseball player is not going to act like a professional, and
not even a professional, right? Like, I mean, the single A guys are professionals too. These are the elite professionals.
Yep.
Right. These are the best of the best.
On a playoff team, by the way.
Yeah,
too.
in the playoffs.
Like, we are as exclusive basically as it gets at this point in the season. And again, the math behind it says if you don't send him, Stanton ended up on second base. I assume he would have gotten there regardless of the throw home situation. But Stanton ends up on second base. It's second and third with one out. The tying run is in scoring position, and you have momentum. And like I said, the Red Sox bullpen is terrible. You need one hit out of 2 tries to tie the game. Instead, you end up with 2 outs. Okay, we just got to get one more guy out and we're done. And then the key thing to me was, like Cory said, when that 4th run was scored for the Red Sox, kind of that get-back run, where you feel like, okay, we got one on the board, we start chipping away, and then it's immediately gone.
Yeah.
That's like, okay, that's when you know you're screwed.
It was
that
bad
it's just
enough
not
that
your
we
night.
lost out on at least a run by sending Judge in that situation, the way that we sent him especially, but then to give that run that we had gotten right back.
Yeah, it was your best
It was
offensive
over.
inning, and the Toot Bland short-circuited the entire inning.
Yep.
You just can't have that in the playoffs. And just one final thought from me. Was there any trepidation about starting Garrett Cole in a game at Fenway when he's just been absolutely torched all season at Fenway? Because he got torched again. Like, I understand you got to throw your best guy, but maybe in these circumstances, your best guy ain't actually your best guy.
Well, who would have been the best guy then?
I don't
mean,
know.
You paid Garrett
That's
Cole.
why I'm asking the question, because Garrett Cole's supposed to be the guy, but he hadn't been that guy in this situation all season, and then he was clearly not last night.
Struggling pretty, he's been on and off throughout the entire second half of the season. Really, ever since
Spider Tack.
Yeah, exactly. Ever since that. So, the Yankees pitching situation is, what it has been for the past several years. Frustrating as hell. Now, as we're getting to the end of last week, Eric, Evan, and I were discussing the possibility of needing to do a quote-unquote emergency podcast early this week if we had chaos in Major League Baseball, but unfortunately that chaos was averted in the American League, where we were looking at the possibility of a 4-way tie for the 2 wildcard spots between the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Blue Jays, and the Mariners. But on Sunday, the Yankees and the Red Sox both won their games. That eliminated the Blue Jays, who won as well. It also eliminated the Mariners, but the Mariners sort of eliminated themselves with a home loss to the Angels. So we didn't have that chaos. Had there been a 4-way tie, the teams were asked by Major League Baseball to choose their seeding for a tiebreaker tournament. The Red Sox and Blue Jays picked first and chose to be home teams. The Yankees picked third and got to choose their opponent. They chose the Red Sox. Maybe some bulletin board material for the wild card game. Yankees got who they would have chosen and did not get the job done. So I don't know what that was about.
Does this communicate
the only question
to you?
is, were the Mariners a choice for the Yankees? Because if they were, they weren't.
No.
Okay. Well, then, I guess the Red Sox sort of makes sense, because even though the Red Sox were ahead of the Blue Jays, it was close, and the Blue Jays' run differential was pretty similar to the Rays. Like, the Blue Jays probably, rightfully scared the Yankees a little bit more than the Red Sox did, but...
Well, the Blue Jays were a better team than the Red Sox were this year.
Yeah.
They're more complete.
Yeah. But, so that was that. The American League playoff bracket for the ALDS will begin on Thursday. On FS1, you'll be able to catch the White Sox and the Astros at 4, and then the Red Sox and the Rays at 8. Meanwhile, tonight, we have the National League wildcard game between the Cardinals and the Dodgers. The game is in L.A. Wainwright versus Scherzer tonight, and the winner will advance to play against the Giants. Some things to talk about with this. I don't know what the correct answer is to fix this issue, but I can tell you that having a 106 win team in a wild card And then if they win, the 107 win team in the league having to face that 106 win team in the NLDS ain't it. This ain't it. I don't know if you guys have thought about possible fixes to this issue. Or at least it's an issue as I see it. I don't know. What do you guys think? Is this fair that the Dodgers have to play in this game?
Absolutely. And I mean, I
Is
put
it,
in our
and
notes.
beyond that, is it fair that the Giants will have to face them if they win this game?
I don't think that part is fair. I would like to see the Giants and the Dodgers in the championship series. I wish they would reseed after the wild card game. Especially since both division series in each league start on the same day. Where they don't have to, where they put in a travel day. Like, I mean, the Brewers and the Braves, they don't start until Friday, even though both of their last games were on Sunday. Like, they're just sitting around.
Yeah,
There's
that part is a little bit weird to me. I feel like it would have made more sense to have like the White Sox and the Astros and the Brewers and the Braves on Thursday, and then have the games involving the wild card teams on Friday. I mean, I get not wanting to give.
I think they should do that.
Like I get not wanting to give the wild card teams, the benefit of having an extra day to rest that wild card starter to potentially get them in the rotation a little bit earlier in the divisional series. Just because you sort of want to penalize a team, I guess, for needing to be in the wild card game. But when one of those teams has won 106 games, I think that's a little bit uncalled for. I just think that would make more sense to do it that way.
Yeah. I mean, they should either do it that way, like you said, or reseed after the wild card. So, like, the Giants, assuming the Dodgers win, the Dodgers would then go play the Brewers, or they would host. Would they host the Brewers?
If you
would they get to host
If
the
you
Brewers?
reseed, then yes, because they would become the second seed.
Or somebody also proffered this, potentially just reseeding from the jump, where if you're a division winner, that doesn't entitle you to a spot in the AL or NLDS, where if you have the worst record among the teams that won their divisions and among the two wildcard teams, you play in the wildcard game. And frankly, that wouldn't hurt my feelings
It
either.
wouldn't hurt my
I
feelings
don't
either.
want to talk about fair, because what the hell is fair? This is
fair.
professional
Fair is
sports.
just that every team is subject to the same rules.
Yeah, I
Like
mean,
it almost doesn't matter what those rules are as long as every team is subject to them.
Yeah,
that's fair.
I'm more concerned. I don't want to dabble with fair. I want to dabble with what's good for baseball. Having
That's fair.
having a thank you, having a 106 win team playing in a 1-game playoff doesn't seem like it's good for baseball. It seems like the Dodgers are one of the premier teams in baseball. They're a team that we want to see for at least a little while in the playoffs, and you're setting them up to potentially get bounced in the first day.
I think the intrigue of, oh my God, a 106 win team could lose in this 1-game playoff. I think that intrigue potentially plays into some interest for this one game. The problem then is that if they lose it, that's one less really good team in the actual tournament to draw people in to watch.
Yeah, it sort of reminds me of the NCAA tournament, where the best first weekends are followed by some of the worst basketball you'll ever see in the NCAA tournament. If it's upset after upset after upset in the first 4 days of the tournament, then you get around to the Sweet 16, you're like, oh, sweet, all these Cinderellas. And then you realize these Cinderellas suck at basketball, and they don't really belong here. And so the rest of the tournament stinks. But the thing is, with baseball, it's a difference between one really cool game, because I know I'm excited for tonight's game. I'm excited for the possibility that the Dodgers could get bounced. But then what? Then I have to watch the Cardinals, who are not as good, although they were red hot, potentially play 5-game series, then maybe a 7-game series. Whereas the Dodgers, they're gone for the rest of the season. I'm just like, okay, I wish I could have seen more of the Dodgers. They won 106 games. They're a really good team. I want to see more of them in the playoffs than just one game. But, I understand, again, it's not unfair to them. They had their chances to catch and pass the Giants. They lost the season series 10-9. They blew a lot of games. Walker Buehler had a really bad game in the last one, which was supposed to be the end-all, be-all of the season series, and he pitched like crap.
And
so,
they lost that season series despite 10 of the 19 games being in LA.
Yeah, so this is clearly a situation where the Dodgers made their bed. Like, they had their chances to fix this
But
and
even
get this
if
right.
the Dodgers had fixed it and made it right, we would be in the same situation talking about,
The Giants.
Is it fair that the Giants at 106 wins are having to play in the wild card game?
Yeah, and again, it's I don't really want to get into what's fair and what's not fair. I know I would prefer to see the better teams have a chance beyond just one game, because it leads to situations where I'm watching some less than stellar baseball later in October, and that's not what I want, but that's just me.
The one thing I agree 100% with Evan on is I don't want to see the Dodgers and the Giants playing in the NLDS.
Oh, absolutely not.
I don't want to see a maximum of 5 games. I want to see a maximum of 7 games between these two teams.
These are the two best teams in all of baseball. A matchup between the two of them, if it gets to that point, should be a 7-game series. Like that, exactly. That's my point.
How often do you see the two best teams in baseball from the same division? Not very often. I mean,
Red Sox,
the
Yankees
Red
back
Sox,
in like
Yankees
2003
back
and
in the
4,
day
yeah.
were, they were often the top 2 teams, or at least 2 of the 3 best teams in baseball. But you don't see it that often, and when you do, you kind of hope to see them in the championship series, not in the divisional series.
And it used to be that the wild card team couldn't face
couldn't
own
face a
division
division
winner.
opponent. Yep.
So, but now that's more likely to happen because of situations like this. Which,
Yep.
again, it's going to be awesome tonight. I'm going to love tonight if we ever get home to watch it, given how long this podcast is probably going to take. But after that, if the Dodgers lose, I don't know. I don't really want to watch the Cardinals play a postseason series. I'm not really interested in them.
Well, I'll try to keep us moving so that we can get to that game, which they're in their warm-up right now. It'll probably be first pitch any minute now. It is 8:07 p.m. One last thing on baseball before we move on. This year, we saw the longest average game time ever. And this despite supposed rules that were meant to speed up the game, pitch clocks and whatnot. I'm assuming, Evan, you put this in here?
No, I put
Oh,
it
you
in
put
here,
it in here?
yeah.
So what do you have to say about this one, Eric?
Well, it goes to show that the stupid ideas that were presented didn't work, right? Like the 3-batter rule for the bullpen clearly didn't save the day. Having the extra inning rule, which will be no more after this, didn't save the day. And having...
Do they count the 7-inning doubleheader games toward the game time?
I assume they did.
Man, that's even more damning.
I know. You got
that's
rid
the
of a lot of
case.
innings.
Good
Yeah.
Lord.
But
A lot of innings.
Yeah.
A lot of at-bats for our fantasy players.
yeah, like getting rid of the mound visits or limiting them to 6 a game, which I don't think has ever really even come into play. It almost did yesterday because the Yankees were trucking out to the mound because Cole got hooked early, but it just doesn't happen often enough for that to actually make a difference. The issue is that the stuff that will actually work, the damn players aren't going to go with. Like staying in the batter's box. No stepping out to adjust your gloves and spit on your hands and adjust your cup and all the other nonsense that people do. Stay in the batter's box and get ready to hit. And for the pitchers, you get the ball back, you get on the mound, get the sign, throw the pitch, and let's move. And they just don't want to do that. They're perfectly happy to take their sweet old time playing baseball while viewership declines, while people lose interest, and while games take longer and longer. And it's frustrating. The gimmicky solutions were clearly not going to work, and they were just going to piss people off because they were kind of stupid. And now you're looking at it and you're saying, okay, well, not only did it not work, it actually got worse. So you actually have to take real action to fix this. You can't just throw a bunch of crap at the wall and see what sticks. There are obvious answers.
They need to make changes that have some teeth to them, right? Like, all this cosmetic stuff. Like, you really need to attack the problem. And the problem is it's not the pace of play, it's the pace of action. There's just people standing around just looking. I don't know how exciting it is for you guys to just watch grass grow and paint dry, but that's not exciting television. And remember, it's a television show. We're trying to put on 2,000 television shows every summer, and just have it be so dull. And people are just looking and spitting and scratching and adjusting their cup and shaking their head. Like that's not exciting stuff. So I agree. The batters need to stay in the box. No milling around. I don't like the batters' timeouts either. You need to be standing there ready to hit. Let's see. The first batter last night, Anthony Rizzo steps in the box. Before the first pitch is thrown, he calls timeout. Like, what are you waiting for now?
This is like if the Jaguars had asked for an extension on the first pick of the draft this year. Like, we need 5 more minutes. What were you doing with the last?
You've been on
3
the clock
months?
since January. What are you talking about? And see, I think another thing, though, that might have elongated these games is the ridiculous review process that baseball has. It takes forever for them to make calls that a lot of times are pretty obvious, right or wrong calls.
And it's not even like the officials there, like the umpires there, are making the call. It's coming from New York. Like, they should be able to like have an answer for them by the time they put the headset on.
And that was what the replay system was sold as, because I remember they showed the replay room in New York, and they basically said, we're going to have professional umpires sitting here watching all the games, and as soon as a play that we think could need a review happens, we're watching that before they even call it in, so that way, as soon as they get it to us, we've already been looking at it, so we can expedite the process and potentially just say, yeah, we looked at it, overturn it, or whatever. And if it takes a little more time, whatever, but you've at least started the process. How many times have they put the headset on and then just 5 seconds later took it off and said, yep, he's out, or he's safe, or
Not
whatever?
very often.
I haven't seen
Never. It's never happened because they don't do it. It was all just a bunch of
5-minute
BS.
reviews.
I mean,
People just standing there.
Yeah, standing there
more
doing
standing
nothing.
around.
Yeah. So, the one other thing is anything that they do pass a rule on, they've got to enforce it, because that's been probably the biggest issue, is that a lot of these things they haven't enforced. The pitch clock. I don't know if they were better about enforcing it this year, but they sure hadn't been enforcing it leading into this year.
No,
Well, there's no pitch clock in the majors, so
Oh, they took it away.
they never had it.
They had
they
one.
did.
They had an experimental one.
Oh, like
for a
in
little
spring
while.
In
training
like
or
spring
something.
training or something like that.
Yeah, and
Gotcha.
they also had one. I saw one at Oriole Park a few years back, but there was it was the only thing they really timed was the time between pitching changes with the bullpen.
Gotcha.
It was like 2 minutes and 20 seconds,
Well,
and maybe time
They
between
should
innings.
have a pitch clock, but they've got to enforce it if they're going to do it. Let's move on to some college football. The Red River Showdown and the Cotton Bowl is at noon on ABC this Saturday. Number 6 Oklahoma taking on number 21 Texas, and College Game Day will be there. It's an interesting
why?
choice.
Why did they? I mean, I understand that these are two big brands of college football, but like, you didn't pick the best game.
We've got
ESPN.
we've got 3 other games between ranked opponents. You've got
There's a top 5 matchup.
right.
This week.
So you've got number 4 Penn State at number 3 Iowa at 4:00 on Fox. That would have been a great choice for College Game Day, I feel like. I mean, how often has they done College Game Day in Iowa? That'd be a cool experience.
Iowa's got a cool tradition. They wave to the kids at the hospital.
Right.
I mean, that's awesome.
Exactly. Number 2 Georgia at number 18 Auburn. Yeah, there's a big discrepancy between their rankings, but still both of them are higher than the two that are, you've got Georgia ahead of Oklahoma and Auburn ahead of Texas in the rankings.
Isn't that like the South's oldest rivalry or something?
It is the South's oldest rivalry.
There you go. 3:30 p.m. on CBS. College Game Day could have been there. And then even number 13 Arkansas at number 17 Ole Miss. 2 teams that are both ranked above Texas and also are fairly similarly matched as far as the rankings go. Could potentially go either way. Noon game on ESPN. College Game Day could have gone there.
Plus,
but nope.
any excuse to put Lane Kiffin on TV to make a fool of himself would be appreciated.
I mean, it is a television show.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, I will tune in to watch Lane Kiffin just because he's so detestable, and I enjoy watching him lose.
Did you see the mic drop he pulled last week against Alabama?
Yeah, I
He was
did.
doing his pregame interview and, he answered a question with an answer that didn't answer the question, and then he ripped the headset off, dropped it on the ground, and walked away while the reporter was about to ask him something else.
Yep, I did
Goodness.
see
And
that.
then
And then they got
Ole Miss
housed.
proceeded to get waxed by Alabama. Alabama does that to people. I don't know what Lane was thinking.
Yeah, there's no shame in getting
Overplooking
your
it a
ass
little
beat
bit.
by Alabama. There is some shame in doing a mic drop with a headset in the middle of an interview, acting like you said something cool and that you were gonna follow up on it, and then you didn't.
So what are your guys' thoughts on those 4 games between ranked opponents?
I'm excited. Our loyal listener James is going to be at the UJ Auburn game. So
If you
I'm
have not
excited.
gotten
I'm
a
gonna
chance to read his write-up on our blog from Auburn's trip up to Penn State, which he also took, went up there to watch that game. Great article, really cool contribution from James to be able to kind of share in that experience a little bit and hear about that weekend for him.
Yes, War Eagle, please. Could y'all please win this week? Auburn, could y'all please win? Let's go, Auburn.
I wouldn't have a whole lot of hope if I were you. I certainly
don't
wouldn't start
have
holding
any
my
of that.
breath. But
Arkansas
but we
got
can certainly
beat
root
down.
for them. We can certainly
Oh
root
my
for
goodness. Yes, Arkansas last week, they laid the egg of all eggs. That was terrible. Arkansas, they were ranked number 8 and they were all excited and everything, and they just got annihilated. It 37-0, and it wasn't that close, right?
Yeah, if they could have scored negative points, they would have.
Yeah. I feel like they tried to, right? They were running backwards. They had a punt blocked in their own end zone for a touchdown. That should be negative points right there.
Has the
Like
same
you're
effect.
already giving up possession on purpose, backed up in your own end zone, and you screw it up further. Like they should have gotten -6 instead of Georgia getting 6.
Other games to note for this weekend in college football, we've got number 9 Michigan at Nebraska, 7:30 p.m. on ABC, and the number 1 team in the country, Alabama, will be at Texas A&M at 8 o'clock on CBS. So, shouldn't be a whole lot of intrigue to those matchups, quite frankly. Those should be pretty one-sided affairs, but always worth watching some of those top teams if you're really into college football, which
I think-
Eric and Evan are.
Yeah, I think the most interesting thing about that Alabama-Texas A&M game isn't anybody on the field, but it's Texas A&M's stadium, which is gigantic.
Yep.
It's they get 102,000 people in there.
Yeah, it is an impressive home field advantage.
Yeah, it's not going to help against
No,
Alabama.
absolutely
They
not.
don't
They're
need
going
worry
to get
about that.
waxed, but it
but
is a sight to see
Yeah, it's
on
going to be cool. to look
television. It's just a huge wall of people all around the entire stadium. Like, it just seems like it never stops going up. Like, it's just so many people.
And it was expanded from like 80,000 or something. And it's to say it's gigantic doesn't really do it justice. Like they could have NASCAR races in there. It's that big.
Yep.
So let's go ahead and move on to the guys who get paid to play. It's starting to change in college football a little bit, but start with the guys on Sunday. We'll start with the team who played in Atlanta this week and had a come from behind victory. A little bit of clutch action from Taylor Heineke.
And y'all didn't want to come see it.
Well, clutch action from J.D. McKissick is
That too. J.D. McKissick, I mean, that was a great play.
Your boy.
And now that I don't have Antonio Gibson on my fantasy team,
can stop
J.D.
hating? Is that
McKissick
what
to
you're saying?
steal touches away from him, I don't hate him anymore.
You can stop hating on him now.
Yes,
'cause
I
he's
can
not
stop
messing
hating
up
on
your
him.
stuff.
I can start appreciating him because that was a heck of a play. I'm still not entirely convinced that he actually got the ball over the pylon on that dive, but it doesn't matter.
It felt like the ref it was the rule of cool. Like, it looked awesome, and it was close
it was
enough.
awesome.
He jumped so high they couldn't get a definitive angle of where the ball was because the camera was just not high enough to be able to get the angle. So they said, "Hey, it's cool. Give him a touchdown."
So, and Chase Young almost had his first sack of the season,
Instead, he
but
got a
then
penalty.
they penalized him for a shot to the head, which his
Illegal
elbow
hands to
hit
the chest.
under him
Yeah.
in his chest, and then slid up and sort of grazed Matt Ryan's face mask, and somehow that was a blow to the head. Yeah, I don't know about
After
that.
seeing all
one.
the hits that Lamar Jackson took and Teddy
Mm-hmm.
Bridgewater as well, I'm like, you're gonna call that
Right.
Yeah.
seriously?
So Washington managed to come back and win. Kept me in the running for the week for a little bit because I went kind of heavy on the team with the confidence points.
That's why we didn't, because we were like, whoa.
That did not end up paying off for me. I did not win.
No,
the
it
week.
did not.
We'll get to that in a little bit. But
questionable
let's go ahead and jump to Evan. Your Ravens. You guys beat the Broncos fairly handily, 23-7. You guys also tied the NFL record for the longest streak of consecutive games with 100 yards rushing at 43. I took a little bit of an issue with that. Not so much over like the record itself for wanting the record, but more about how dumb it is to risk your players' health for it. With that said, I'm softening my position just a little bit on it because one thing that I didn't realize, because I was watching NFL Red Zone, and so I really just kind of saw like that last play. I saw that the Ravens had actually run a play to get those extra few yards to get to 100 rushing yards on the day. What I didn't see was that Vic Fangio, for whatever reason, called 3 timeouts on that drive, despite the fact that his team was down 23-7 and wasn't going to be able to do anything. What are you doing? And then you're going to be upset about the Ravens, running up their yardage total?
Yeah, it was a 5-yard run. Like, it wasn't like they were running up the score. I mean, I don't understand. Vic Fangio acted like a huge baby over this, and it was funny because they showed a clip of him, I guess, on Denver's Sporting News 9 or whatever, where they showed him on the sidelines as they lined up to run the play, and Fangio wasn't pissed when they started running the play. He was pissed when it worked. So it seemed like Vic Fangio was just mad because, I mean, he knows he's going to get fired because he sucks as a coach, and his team's going to finish in 4th place in the division
wanted a little feather in his cap.
And so he could go. So when he updates his resume and he needs a defensive coordinator job,
I ended the streak.
Like, hey, I sold out and let Lamar Jackson light me up for 320 passing yards, but we did not allow 100 rushing yards to him. And then he acts like a big baby about. It's like that's just how they operate over there, like impugning John Harbaugh, and I'm like, dude. John Harbaugh is going to the Hall of Fame one day. You are not going to make it as a head coach in this league. So maybe pipe down a little bit with the theatrics, especially because, again, they were down 16 points with 10 seconds left, and they're throwing the ball in the end zone, calling timeouts on the drive. It got picked off, and it's like, oh, well, I guess they could have scored a touchdown and then completed a 2-point conversion and then gotten the onside kick and then thrown a Hail Mary and then
thrown a Hail Mary?
Yeah, I guess.
A 70-yard Hail Mary?
A 60-yard Hail Mary off an onside kick recovery with 2 seconds left or something like that.
Drew Lock throwing the ball.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't matter who's throwing the ball. It's too far, unless you're Aaron Rodgers. So I'm just like, okay, you had no chance to win, but you're running plays. Like, that's the thing that I never understood about this, is this idea that only the winning team has to stop trying in situations like this. The losing team is allowed to go out there and continue to run plays to their heart's content even when the game is over. But when the winning team says, hey, we just want 4 more rushing yards so we can keep this streak going that clearly means something to the players and to the coach, I don't take any issue with that because, again, it's not like you're showing anybody up. It's a 4-yard run. They used to not even take knees. I understand the idea that, hey, somebody might get hurt on this play. But that doesn't stop any of the losing teams from running plays. They could easily take knees and just pack it up and go home too. But they never do. Because it's football, man. It's competitive. People want to do things. I have no issue if a team says, hey, we want this. Risk be damned. Let's go run one more play. I can't get caught up in the outrage over that. I just can't.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a fan of the risk, but I hear what you're saying. One thing I will say is, until you get to the point where you can kneel out the clock, like legitimately kneel out the clock on one possession, you got to go all out. I don't like when coaches get upset or anybody gets upset about a team running up the score. They're not running up the score. They're running their plays. They're continuing to go at full effort because you know what happens when you don't go at full effort while the losing team is still going at full effort? You end up getting hurt. because you're not running at the speed you're used to running. You're not taking the angles you're used to taking. You're not avoiding hits the same way or controlling the way that you're hit or the way that you go to the ground, the way that you normally control it. You end up risking injury at that point. You can't slow yourself down if the other team is not slowing down too. And if they're not going to slow down and you keep scoring because you're that much better, that's not running up the score. That's just running your offense. That's just doing what you've been training to do.
Yeah, it reminds me of a drive when the Saints were playing the Cowboys years ago. And, it's customary when you're ahead. Like, you still obviously put full effort in, but you run the ball a little bit more to keep the clock moving. You're not slinging bombs or doing anything like that. You're like, okay, we're going to continue to try to move the chains to get the game over with, but we're going to focus on the run game and not, be slinging it all over the yard. The Saints ran the ball on every play on that drive and still scored a touchdown. Like, the Cowboys were just providing absolutely no resistance defensively, and every run play was 6 or 7 yards. So I'm not going to tell Pierre Thomas or Alvin Kamara or whoever the hell was running the ball at that game, hey, stop after 3 yards. You're kicking their ass too much. It's like, no, keep running until you're tackled or you go out of bounds. Like, this is how this works. You can't tell me to stop competing. We talk about this with baseball. You can't tell me I can't swing at a pitch because we're ahead by too much. If you're going to make me stand out here and play this game, I'm going to play it as hard as I can.
Yeah, there's no such thing as running up the score. Like, when somebody complains that someone's running up the score, that just means they're kicking your butt. That's what that is. It means that
your defense is trash.
Right, yeah, that's running up the score. No, they're beating you really bad, and you should do something about it. So, Vic Fangio, this is level 1 weak sauce out of him, right? He's blaming the other team for beating him. That's what he's really upset about. The Ravens beat the Broncos in Denver by 2 scores, and some guy on this podcast thought the Broncos would win. I don't know why anybody thought that, but that's beside the point. The Broncos, they got waxed. Okay, it happens. But there's no point getting all bent out of shape, on TV. So there's that. Vic Fangio, the park that I run at here in town, they have youth football, in the evenings. Maybe he should be coaching them because, when you coach in the NFL, there's no running up the score. There's no showing anybody up. This is the highest level of competition, and you need to be competing on every single play. And the Broncos certainly were. They're throwing passes and taking timeouts under a minute to go, down by 2 scores. They could easily have just taken a knee and gone home. But no, they're throwing passes, and one of the only reason that they didn't that there was time left for the Ravens was one of their passes was intercepted in the end zone. Like, but what are you doing? You screwed up and then screwed up on top of your screw up. So that happened. And then the record itself. This is a great record to have tied. They tied the Pittsburgh Steelers from the 1970s with 43 consecutive games of 100 rushing yards. So whenever you match anything that those Steelers teams did, you're doing something pretty good. And John Harbaugh gave his team tremendous credit, for pointing out all the work that they did and how running the football like this is their identity, and this is something that everybody who's involved with this team will be able to point back to years down the road and say they were a part of it.
I will say it's impressive they've continued it this year because while obviously Lamar Jackson is a huge part of their running game and can he can contribute a lot of rushing yards per game. With J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards both out and having to lean on guys like Tyson Williams and, Latavius Murray is not a bad running back. I mean, he's certainly been more than serviceable with the Saints for the past few years. But still, he's not really a starting running back in the NFL, at least not somebody that you peg as being a starting running back in the NFL. And the Ravens have continued to hit those rushing numbers.
Yeah, that's just part of what Lamar Jackson does. He's the only player in the league that's the main component of both the rushing attack and the passing attack because he might not have the most rushing yards on a given day, but he's the most impactful running player on the team because teams have to worry about him not handing the ball off and running it himself, which is something that nobody else really does that prolifically. And, again, we've made the joke on here, and I've made the joke many times watching football that Vic Fangio is just a grumpy version of Butch Jones, and this kind of drives that a little bit further home. So there you go.
One other thing to talk about from this past week, Urban Meyer.
Oh, jeez.
He's done, man.
He all reports from Jacksonville are that he has completely lost the locker room. None of the players really respect him.
He's coached 4 games. How do you lose the locker room already?
Right, he's only coached 4 games for a team that isn't really expected to win a whole lot this year as it is. And then you throw in what happened this past weekend at the strip club with...
It wasn't a strip club. It was just at a bar.
That was just like a party?
Wait. Not only was it at a bar, it was at
bar?
Urban Meyer's.
Oh, is that his own bar?
Ohio. Yes, it was at his bar.
Oh, jeez. I didn't catch that part of the story. My goodness. Yeah. He was basically publicly chastised by the Jaguars owner today. I don't see how he keeps his job even through the end of this season, quite frankly.
Like Evan said, that how do you lose your locker room after week 4? But given all the nonsense that Urban Meyer has pulled since he got the job, it's almost a surprise it took this long.
It is.
I mean, between the hiring of Chris Doyle, the Iowa strength and conditioning coach, who had been in trouble a lot for being a racist.
I figured he would have lost the players' trust by like the end of the 4th week of training camp.
Yeah, and then he's whining about losing preseason games. He signs Tebow to be a tight end, which, just no... That's an unserious move. Like, that's not something that a serious football coach would ever consider. And yet he did it. And you can't tell me that people didn't look at him and say, is this guy just trying to be a gimmicky coach, or is he actually going to put the work in to be the guy? And then he sits there and he says, yeah, it's in the NFL, man, every week's like prepping for Alabama. I'm like, yeah, that's the job. It's called being a pro. It's kind of hard. You can't just go out there and say, well, I've got way better players than you this week, so I'm going to win no matter what. 10 out of 12 weeks a year, where you really only have to prep maybe twice when you play Penn State and Wisconsin or Iowa or whoever. And then if you make the playoff, maybe you actually have to take that game seriously too. There's no easy street in the NFL. These guys are all pros. You're never going to be favored by more than 10 to 14 points, and certainly your team is not. Your team is going to be underdogs by that much because you signed up for the team that went 1-15 last year. So welcome to the pros.
That's why
Urban.
the job was available.
Yes,
the team was bad.
Teams that go 14-2, with only one exception, typically don't fire their coach. It's not something you see. So sorry for that, Urban. And again, Schottenheimer got canned after the Chargers lost.
That's because the Chargers are stupid.
That was a dumb decision to fire him, yes. And then the thing is, like, he honestly could have gotten away with this a little bit because, okay, he's a creepy old geezer going into a college bar and canoodling with a young lady. It's bad. It looks bad.
Well, he's married.
Yeah, well, again, while he's married, it also is really bad. But Urban Meyer, let's be honest, wouldn't be the first guy to cat around on his wife. That happens all the time, and it's just part of life, unfortunately. And the thing is, if he had just manned up to his players and said, yeah, guys, I made a dumb mistake, and I shouldn't have done that, but let's move on. But he goes in there, he's looking down his shoelaces like a little kid who got caught, cheating on his math test and all that stuff. And he does the same thing in front of the press, and he's just he can't look up and face people because he's just such a terrible liar and just a gump. I mean, what can you say about the guy at this point? He just embarrassed himself even further by doing that. If he had just said, hey, I was being an idiot, whatever, move on. But he couldn't even just eat it. He just had to be all like, oh, I got dragged to the bar. It wasn't even my idea. Like classic, 12-year-old.
What's your idea? They played in Cincinnati. How do you end up in Columbus against your will?
And
were you kidnapped?
And that's ultimately, I think, where the players where it really started. It wasn't even so much what he got caught doing. It was the fact that after they go to Cincinnati on Thursday night, he doesn't take the plane back to Jacksonville with the team, which is obviously bare minimum. You ride back with your team. after a defeat, after victory, whatever. If you then want to go to Columbus because you have a few days off and spend some time at your bar at Ohio State, fine, that's your choice. That's your day off. Nobody's going to get fired on their day off. But you chose to ditch your team to go do this instead. And the players are probably looking at you like, wait, you went and did what instead of riding back with us? You didn't go visit a sick relative. You didn't go to a funeral or a wedding. You went to go chase some tail at a bar.
And then you can't even take responsibility for your own actions, which, as a head coach, he would certainly expect his players to take responsibility for any screw-ups that they have.
Maybe he wouldn't. I don't know. Urban's not much for accountability for anybody. I mean, and again, this goes back to every stop he's had his entire life. Again, just an unserious coach. Just not a serious person when it comes to the task of being an NFL coach. He got away with it in college because he got to pick his own players and he got to smooth talk a bunch of 18-year-old kids into coming to his school and potentially becoming pros. That doesn't work with grown-ass men who already have paychecks and wives and families. They're not interested in your greased-up used car salesman pitch. They want to be respected and have somebody worth respecting too, and Urban has not provided that.
Yeah. So no doubt he's going to be grinding tape this week.
So how long do we think he's going to last this season? Is he going to make it to the end?
No.
Is he going to make it to Thanksgiving?
That's probably the over/under right there.
Yeah, I would say that's a good place to set it. Yeah.
I think that's a fair over/under.
Yeah, I think he makes it to Thanksgiving, and probably with like 2 or 3 games left, he's mercifully relieved of his duties and can go back to Columbus at his bar.
And I also wonder though, because obviously there's some chirping about him maybe taking a prominent college job that comes available, maybe USC or I guess maybe Miami if that's a thing. I feel like this kind of hurts him.
Yeah.
Like I feel like at this point, it's one thing to fail in the NFL. Like Nick Saban failed in the NFL. But it's another thing to make a complete ass of yourself while you do it. Like, now you've got kids who are going to look at you, and maybe they're going to look at you a little funny now. Maybe they're going to say, nah,
the parents
not
are going to
really.
look at you a little
funny
funny,
too.
too.
Oh, yeah, the parents have a big influence, too. And Urban has lost the trust of a lot of people with his nonsense.
I mean, Miami and USC, you mentioned them. Those are highly respected academic institutions, right? Like, they care about that stuff at those places. And
I mean, USC is already dealing with the embarrassment of everything that happened. Everything that's happened with different celebrities, basically paying to have their kids, be on an athletic team to get into the school when they are not athletes.
You can't have some full coach in your marquee athletic program at your university. I mean,
they're
Miami's
already
a
dealing with the fallout of that. I don't think they want to bring on another potential media firestorm.
Well, and the last time USC football was prominent, it quickly went up in smoke because Pete Carroll and company got caught pulling shenanigans with the NCAA, and so all of those wins ultimately were vacated, and Reggie Bush lost his Heisman.
If USC was on Urban's radar, he might want to quickly take it off because I don't think they're going to be coming knocking anytime soon.
You would think he's definitely hurt his chances a lot.
Last bit of stuff to look back on week 4 with are the best and worst, according to Football Outsiders Quick Reads. Best quarterback of the week was Danny Dimes.
This can't possibly
be right. Against a team other than Washington? How does this make sense?
Who did the Giants play this week? They played the
Saints.
The Saints?
And the Saints, I think, have the number 1 defense by DVOA right now.
That's why he has the highest damn DYAR.
Yeah, DYAR for the week. Yeah,
because he lit up supposedly a great defense, even though they weren't so great on Sunday, especially in the fourth quarter.
The offense also was not good. That didn't help matters for the Saints.
Sean Payton was terrible. It was his fault.
Yeah.
Okay.
Davis Mills was the worst of the week. Quarterback for the Houston Texans. At running back, almost number 1 as a total running back was Cordell Patterson, but just edged out on Monday night by Austin Eckler, who is the number 1 running back both for total and rushing DYAR. The worst running backs, Josh Jacobs for total and Mike Davis for rushing. So naturally, Evan is on our chat trying to shop around Cordell Patterson after I traded him Mike Davis last week instead of trying to get rid of the bad Falcons running back.
Well, the issue is that Mike Davis is getting way more snaps than Cordell Patterson.
How
and
long
I'm
is that going to
concerned-
last, though? And Cordero is getting all of the run in the passing game, which the Falcons are so trashy at. They're always in passing situations.
Okay, but Cordell Patterson doesn't feel sustainable to me.
Yeah,
That's why when Evan said, "Is anybody
Evan might
interested?"
be trying to sell him high, but I'm not trying to buy him high.
Yeah,
I don't want either of these guys now.
That's why.
It's so frustrating.
That's why when Evan was like, "Is anybody interested in a Cordell Patterson trade?" And I said no, just because I don't believe that the good times are going to keep rolling with him.
I gave it a thought for a moment and it was like, I'm good at running back.
Hey, but the on Flea Flicker it said hold.
It does say hold.
It didn't say sell.
It does say hold.
It says hold.
So
Evan, hold.
Best wide receiver tight end of the week was Tyreek Hill. He was fantastic, as he always is, but
he actually got
so
the catches this week. Usually
this
he just makes everybody else get the catches because they send 4 guys after him.
Yeah.
And everybody else is wide open.
The worst of the week was Juju Smith-Schuster. It's hard to tell how much of that is his fault and how much of it is just that
Hey,
offense.
just listen to him on the sidelines. It's Ben, man. It was pretty obvious that's what he was saying after Ben overthrew him for the 12th time, probably.
So
Big Ben
you're
is
saying
struggling.
Ben's not good with the negative yardage check down on 4th and 5? You're
My
saying
God,
that's a bad
what
play?
on earth was that?
That was the Ben Roethlisberger can't throw down the field play, and let's hope Najee Harris can make a miracle happen.
Might have to, find some convoluted way to rename that statistic away from Alex to Ben after that play.
I will say though, when Joe Flacco checked down on 4th and 29 in San Diego in 2012, that was a questionable decision as well. But that's
it's 4th and 29. You don't expect to really, actually pick that up.
Your only hope was to get the ball in Ray Rice's hands and hope he got to the sticks, and somehow he did.
But why he threw it 3 yards at 4th and 29?
That's where the soft area of the defense was because everybody else was covering downfield.
Yes, they didn't expect it. That's why it worked.
Right. So you get it to Ray Rice, not just in front of the defense, but far enough in front that he can turn and see where he wants to go and allow the rest of his receivers to try and come back and get some blocks set up. And it wound up working. So I don't necessarily have a problem with that decision. I'm not one to give Flacco a lot of credit for things, but
I don't think it was really his choice. I think it was just a
that
play
was
call.
Yeah, exactly. So
that was the play call.
As
I feel
opposed
you
to
got to
throwing
chuck something at least towards the sticks. Maybe get a PI or something.
So there was a moment in the Packers-Steelers game where Mike Tomlin and Aaron Rodgers kind of shared a look. I think it was mostly about the fact that Tomlin beat Aaron Rodgers to the punch by calling a timeout before Rodgers could snap the ball with 12 men on the field. Yeah. And so it's kind of like a knowing glance. But
dude, that was more than a knowing glance.
Social media certainly went, and looked at that as maybe they're talking about joining up next year. And I don't know if there's any teeth to that rumor, but I would love it.
You love it.
I would love it. I would love Aaron Rodgers and Mike Tomlin. I get Evan does not like the Steelers. I totally get that.
I would love it if they did that, but they were not in Pittsburgh.
Well, I don't have a problem with Pittsburgh. I like their ownership group. I have a lot of respect for that organization.
What's likable about their ownership group? What's so fun and cool about them?
The Roonies are awesome.
List one thing.
I mean, they've got a rule.
Yeah, they got a rule named after them, the Rooney Rule.
And it's ineffective.
It is a little bit ineffective, but it's still a rule that's it's meant to be.
I personally don't believe that the Steelers deserve a get out of jail free card for riding the Ben Roethlisberger ship into the sea. They don't deserve to be able to jump off with their life preservers. They deserve to sink for this.
That's fair.
And getting Aaron Rodgers just cause seems like a get out of jail free card for bad management.
And so
I like Mike Tomlin
it's more
too,
about that connection. I would love to see that duo, Mike Tomlin and Aaron Rodgers.
What if the two of them went to the Eagles? Then how would you feel?
Yeah, things would change.
Well, I would be upset about. I would still like the Rodgers Tomlin thing. I wouldn't like it with the Eagles just because they'd have to play my team all the time, and we'd be toast, more toast than we already are. We'd be burnt toast.
So now you know how Evan feels.
Yeah.
Well,
There's the example right there.
Okay, but this is my show today, so I decide what
Apparently, you decided to make a Cory Puffett in the Sports Ballers.
Let's go ahead and get to our game picks, after which we will all eliminate yet another team from the playoffs. Evan will get first crack at it this week, the first time that I will not go first. Eric will go second, I'll go third. So, let's start Thursday Night Football tomorrow night. Week 4, we had 2 matchups between NFC West rivals. We get 2 matchups between NFC West rivals again this week, and I'm here for it because this is by far and away the best division in the NFL. It was probably the best division in the NFL last year, and it's gotten better. The Rams and the Seahawks play tomorrow night. We're all moderately on the Rams. I've got 4 on them. Eric's got 6. Evan's got 5. So there's not a whole lot to talk about as far as differences of opinion, but man, this is going to be a fun game. It's in Seattle, which is probably one of the reasons why we're a little bit lower on the Rams, because I don't think that there's any doubt in any of our minds that the Rams are the better team in this matchup.
Oh, yeah. I mean, certainly the Rams should win, but, Thursday Night Football is weird. I imagine the Seahawks will be wearing their, blindingly bright green uniforms.
I love those.
Oh, you do?
I do.
Oh, I think they're a bit much.
That's probably the best way to put it.
I mean, that's fair, but I like them. It's again Thursday Night Football. It's a primetime game at no longer the Link. It should still just be called the Link. And
Lincoln Financial Field in Philly's the Link.
Yeah, you're thinking of the Clink.
The Clink, yeah. Anyway, and as we've said pretty much every week on the show, the Seahawks never play a normal game.
They do not.
And
especially in prime time.
Especially in prime time.
No way, it's not allowed.
So yeah, this should be a really fun matchup. Russell Wilson, the Seahawks. Matthew Stafford has been playing very well for the Rams, and Darrell Henderson came back from injury, had a solid game this past week. Hopefully he's good to go for tomorrow night. It is a short week, but hopefully he's good to go. Cooper Kupp has been phenomenal this year, just absolutely lights out for that offense, much to Eric's chagrin, because Robert Woods just can't seem to get a whole lot of run in that offense because Cooper Kupp is eating all the targets.
He gets a lot of garbage time touchdowns, it seems, but the problem is garbage time is hard to come by when you play so many competitive games. It was a pleasant surprise for me that the Rams got their asses kicked by the Cardinals as much as they did, because that paved the way for a garbage time touchdown for Robert Woods.
Yep. So that should be a good game. Moving on to Sunday. We've got the morning game, 9:30 a.m. football. We'll get to wake up to football from London. Of course, it's the Jets and the Falcons.
I mean, we're still gonna watch.
We're still gonna watch. I hope I get to watch. I'll be at a wedding next Sunday, so I may miss quite a bit of football that day. Yeah, I don't know why people schedule weddings for Sundays during football season, but good friends.
Yeah, that's on them. Tell them you're busy.
I should, but Rashonda wouldn't let me, and I understand why.
I don't understand.
We've all got the Falcons winning that game. I've got 6 on them. Evan's got 9 on them. Eric's only got 2 on him, which, maybe a little bit nervous there, but I can sort of understand why, because the Jets actually played pretty decently against the Titans this past week. Granted, the Titans were without their 2 best receivers, A.J. Green and Julio Jones, but they also somewhat contained Derrick Henry. They at least limited him from killing them.
Well, the bigger problem was the fact that the Titans' defense for basically the entire second half of the game couldn't stop the Jets' offense, which should never be uttered by any professional defense.
And now we're going to see them play against the Falcons,
who don't have a very good defense. So that's
a very good offense.
Yeah, so that's what makes me a little apprehensive about this. Is the thing with rookie quarterbacks is they typically suck, but sometimes they show growth. And Zach Wilson showed a little bit of growth against the Titans. I'm not going to say he's turned the corner and now he's a Pro Bowler or anything like that, but he's going up against the Falcons, who are quite flammable, as we know. And we also know that the Falcons' offense isn't that good either. Matt Ryan looks like a shot fighter. The run game is, as we've discussed from our fantasy prospects, not great. So there's just not a whole lot to like about either of these teams. And in that situation, I'm not going to put a lot of confidence on one of these terrible teams. I can't do that.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, the Falcons are horrible and the Jets are more horrible. So, which going to be eating my breakfast and trying not to, get sick from watching these two teams play. I mean, the Jets are just so bad. They have so many issues, and the Falcons, while being just abysmal, they should beat the Jets, right? I know they have better players than the Jets. They have a better quarterback than the Jets, although he's a shell of himself. They should win, but the Falcons have a bit of a predisposition, I guess, to blowing games that they should win. It happens.
It's their favorite
particularly.
It is their favorite thing.
Yeah, that's what they do.
The Saints will travel here to Landover, Maryland to take on the football team. Evan and I have 7 on the Saints. Eric has 3 on the Saints. Again, I can sort of understand, Washington beat the Giants, who beat the Saints, and this is on the road. Not to mention, again, Sean Payton was just awful as a play caller on Sunday.
Did you see what happened on Sunday? I mean, did you see it? Because I saw it, and it was terrible. I mean, just inexcusable for the Saints to lose that game. I mean, they don't look like a good team. They look like a team that's going to be occasional. They'll figure it out. Like against the Packers, somehow it all worked out. I think that was more about the Packers than the Saints. I think it's pretty clear at this point because the Packers have turned it around since then. Yep. Have looked great against some better teams than the Saints. But I feel like Jameis played well in that game against the Giants. And Alvin Kamara ran for 126 yards. And they lost.
And Taysom Hill scored 2 touchdowns, didn't he? Didn't he run for 2 of them?
I think he ran for 2, yeah. But he also threw an interception because Sean Payton let him throw the ball. Which, again, what are you doing? I mean, why are you having the not quarterback throw the ball? He's out there to run the gimmicky option offense. That's what you put him in the game for. Or you line him up at tight end and have him catch passes. He's good at everything except for throwing the football, and you chose to let him do the one thing he can't do when you've already got a guy for that. I mean, I don't get the thought process there. I don't get the thought process of having Aldrich Rojas, I think that's his name.
Rosas, yeah.
Yeah. Try a 57-yard field goal even though he's bad and he's not Will Lutz. And so, of course, he missed it and set the Giants up in prime range for just driving down the field and scoring a quick touchdown. Kept the Giants alive in the game. I mean, it was just a bad coaching performance. And honestly, I can't be feeling any confidence in the Saints to beat the team. I mean, the team's not very good, but neither are the Saints.
Yes.
Might this be the Coach of the Year curse already showing its?
Well, I don't think there's any way that Sean Payton gets fired. Like he's got too much equity built with the Saints. He's a Super Bowl winner. He's probably going to the Hall of Fame. He's not going to get fired because in a year where they lose their Hall of Fame quarterback, they go 7-10 or something like that. If that's what happens, but it certainly is not a good coaching performance through 4 weeks so far for Sean Payton. So if that qualifies as the Coach of the Year curse, then it is what it is.
Yeah, I wasn't impressed by the Saints, but the team looks, despite their win on Sunday, they look kind of like garbage, to be perfectly honest. I cannot believe I was hoodwinked, bamboozled, and led astray.
And run amok.
Run amok as well, to think that they would win their division. That's crap. That's not going to happen. So, I have no faith in them. The Saints, I at least know that they're capable, I guess. But, I won't be watching this game.
We are all in on the Buccaneers against the Dolphins, all of us with 16 points on them. If there was any argument you could make for why the Buccaneers might slip and fall, is because Tom Brady has had struggles against the Dolphins in the past, but this game is not in Miami, and Rob Gronkowski is not healthy enough to be out there to give up a game-winning touchdown in the last play of the day. Buccaneers, big time.
Plus, could it possibly be that some of the Tom Brady struggles in New England when he played for the Patriots in Miami could also just be attributed to the Patriots themselves and them having to go from chilly New England down to humid as hell.
No, it's
Miami.
Tom Brady.
It's all Tom Brady.
It's all Tom Brady.
Because Tom Brady did light him up in that game that Gronk blew that play. Like
It's all
played
Tom
really
Brady.
well. Okay, fine. But the thing is, Brady now plays down there, so with a backup quarterback and no offensive line, I just don't see how it works out.
So that takes us to some lone wolf games that we got for this week. The first of which is the Packers at the Bengals. Evan has 14 points on the Packers. Eric has 11 points on the Packers. I've got 2 points on the Bengals.
Would you please explain?
I'm not
don't hate
shocked.
that.
I'm not shocked to be on the lonely island on this.
I don't hate your pick,
But I was a little bit surprised to see you guys so heavy on the Packers here. The Bengals are playing well right now. They seem to kind of have things going. Obviously, one of the big question marks is Joe Mixon's health. But Samaje Perine played really well in his stead, down the stretch of the game last Thursday night, albeit against the Jaguars. Jamar Chase has been really good. Tyler Boyd has been really good. CJ Uzomah had a great game. I don't know how long that's going to last for.
There's a reason I didn't pick him up.
Nobody in our league picked him up, and I'm sure there's a good reason for that. But they had it going this past week, and their defense is not half bad. Their defense has been playing pretty well. They are at home. If I remember correctly, they actually have a higher DVOA than the Packers as well. I took a quick glance at that just
the
out
Packers
of
had like the worst
curiosity.
They had the worst game of all time against the Saints.
They did, but I mean, they've also had 3 games to hopefully,
That's still a quarter of the score.
That's true.
It's a lot.
But yeah, so I mean, I think the Bengals are scrappy. I think they got a chance to pull it out. I'm not going heavy confidence, of course, on them, but I think they've got a shot here, and I got a feeling.
I think this is a crazy pick, Cory. Let me just go down the resume of the Cincinnati Bengals here in 2021. So they beat the Vikings in overtime by 3 in Week 1. We don't think the Vikings are good.
The Packers lost to the Saints big time in Week 1.
Okay. And in Week 2, at the Bears, a loss. We know the Bears aren't good. They're who we thought they were. Week 3 at Pittsburgh, a win, their biggest win. The Steelers seem to be falling apart. So, and then in Week 4, on a Thursday night at home, they beat Jacksonville by 3 right before Urban Meyer had his episode or whatever. So you're picking that team with that resume to beat the Green Bay Packers.
This
and
feels
Aaron Rodgers, did he go somewhere? Did he quit?
To me, this feels like a trap game for the Packers.
A trap game? Who do they play next week? That's going to trap them.
A trap game is not always just about who the next opponent is. Sometimes it's just about under-preparing for the opponent that you're about to face, and I could see that happening here. The Packers didn't really play all that well against the Steelers this past week. They won the game, sure, but they didn't blow out the Steelers by as much as they, quite frankly, should have.
Packers at Bears next week.
So, I feel like this is a game that the Packers could get caught flat-footed on.
You see, I disagree with that because I think the Bengals have shown enough to be respected that the Packers wouldn't overlook them. And the reason why I went higher on the Packers, though, is because I was kind of feeling the Bengals a little bit. I thought they had some juice. I was impressed with their win over the Steelers, not because the Steelers are good, but because the Steelers' defense is at least pretty good, and they were able to move the ball and had some success against them. But then they needed a late comeback to beat the Jags, and I'm just like, ooh, the Bengals still need some work. And the Packers...
They also have 10 days to prepare for this game, though, which helps.
Yeah, but giving Zach Stacy 3 extra days to prepare...
Zach Stacy?
Whatever his name is. Zach Taylor?
Yes, it's Zach Taylor.
Okay, whatever.
I'm pretty sure it's not Zach Stacy.
Regardless, Zach Taylor, 3 extra days, that's casting pearls before swine. He can't coach. He's no good. He's going to get fired at some point.
Casting pearls before swine?
Yeah.
What's that expression?
Oh, okay. Well, the more you know, that is an expression.
In fact, it's also a comic. It's a pretty good comic.
Okay. Well, I'll have to look that up. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, the Bengals have shown that they're still a work in progress, in my opinion, whereas the Packers, despite the drama of the offseason, that looks like that's subsided. I mean, the Packers are a program, and when you're a program, you get the benefit of the doubt. I probably put more confidence points on them just because there were some other games where I'm like, that team underperformed and they worry me more so than the Packers, who have played pretty well in general. I can't picture a loss here. I mean, I think that, like I said, I don't hate Cory's pick, not nearly as much as Evan seems to, because the Bengals can be frisky, but I think the Packers are going to be ready for this one.
The Broncos at the Steelers. I'm doing it again. I'm going Broncos with 8 points after it did not work against the Ravens, but the Steelers are not the Ravens. Evan is also going Broncos with 3 points, but Eric finds himself lone wolfing this one. 1 point on Pittsburgh. So explain yourself, Eric.
Yeah, I had a really hard time with this one. I ultimately went with Pittsburgh just because I don't know if Teddy's going to play, because he's still in concussion protocol, and they've been very iffy with whether he's going to be ready to go. And so if it's Drew Lock, they're not going to win because Drew Lock's a bum. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. If Teddy played, I'd probably pick the Broncos and put a decent amount of confidence on them. But I just, noodle-armed Ben or not, it's still in Pittsburgh. The Broncos kind of got, I don't want to say exposed, but they kind of showed they weren't really a 3-0 team. Like, they were a team that beat 3 really bad teams to get to 3-0, and then they lost handily to a pretty good team. It just seems like 2 teams that are incomplete going at it. So I'm going to go with the home team for 1 point, because who cares?
Broncos still have a strong defense. I think that keeps them in it. And so, like, even if it is Drew Lock, I get that he's not good, and I get that he's got to go up against the Steelers defense, but that Steelers defense is missing a few pieces. Not everybody's healthy there. And Drew Lock versus Big Ben right now, I don't know that I'm really giving one of them an edge over the other at all. I'd put them basically on the exact same level. And if anything, I'd rather take the young arm who can actually put a little zip on the ball in Drew Lock.
But he's a dunce, man.
I know he's a dunce, but at least he can actually throw the ball downfield a bit. So I'll go with the Broncos either way, but I'm expecting that by Sunday, Bridgewater will be cleared and able to play. Obviously, that might not happen.
I hope so.
If it doesn't, then I'm going to be a little nervous about these 8 points.
I'll gladly give up the 1 point to see Teddy back out there, because I really like Teddy, and I can't stand watching Drew Lock play football. Like, that is not good for anybody. He's infuriating because he thinks he's good, and he's not, and I hate that.
You got to admire his confidence, though.
Do I?
Like, I wish I could be that confident.
It's unearned. You got to earn your confidence, man.
I guess.
The Browns are in LA against the Chargers, where we had a weather delay at SoFi Stadium on Monday night. What the heck was that about?
What is that? $5 billion?
It's a roofed stadium, and we had a weather delay for lightning?
And the weird thing is Park Avenue called the delay. It wasn't them in LA saying we got to postpone this thing or delay it. It was the NFL office in New York making that call.
What?
And nobody ever explained it to me why that was the case. Like, I understand it's an open air stadium, but there's still a roof. Like, the lightning isn't going to dip around the roof and sneak through the holes. That's not how it works. It goes straight to the ground. Like, come on, guys.
It's not going to reach across and tap anybody on the shoulder.
No, this isn't Palpatine with his force lightning coming in through here. It's coming from the sky, which is above. So, and the thing is, I would have bought it if they said there's something weird about the stadium that makes it susceptible to problems with lightning. But nobody ever actually explained anything, because it doesn't make any sense.
I mean, the stadium costs. This is the most expensive stadium by far. So, like, the Raiders Stadium was the most expensive stadium ever at $2 billion. This stadium, SoFi Stadium in Inglewood, California, costs $5 billion. You mean to tell me that you couldn't build a stadium for $5 billion that you could play inside of when there's the possibility of lightning? For $5 billion, could you not spare the extra billion for some lightning protection? Was that too much? This
Put
is
some
craziness.
rubber on the stadium or something.
Putting lightning rods would ruin the aesthetic of the roof.
Yeah, it's very curvy.
Anyway, back to the game that's going to happen this Sunday, where hopefully there will not be a weather delay.
You would think.
The Browns are playing there. Evans got 1 point on the Chargers. Eric's got 4 points on the Chargers. I'm going 3 points on the Browns. I clearly did not learn my lesson Monday night after I picked the Raiders and got that pick wrong. But the Browns are a pretty good team. Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt. I have to imagine that Baker Mayfield is going to get back on the horse after having a very inaccurate day this past week. He even said in the post-game press conference that he expects more from himself. He prides himself on his accuracy, and it just was not there. I have to imagine that it will be there this coming week. That said, this is gonna be a slugfest. I mean, this is gonna be a really tough game. Chargers are playing well. They're at home. Derwin James is back and as good as he has ever been. Justin Herbert obviously has been fantastic. Austin Eckler, we just got done talking about how he was the best running back of the week according to Football Outsiders DYR measurements. So I'm nervous about this, but I was gonna be nervous either way, and I wound up just going with the road dog.
I mean, I picked the Chargers. I mean, like all the stuff you said, this should be a great game. I think it's gonna be close. It's gonna come down to it. I was really impressed by Brandon Staley and the way he approaches the game, how he seemed so prepared, right? And that was something that we haven't seen. We certainly didn't see that out of Anthony Lynn. It was just kind of a mess, just people just running around, just doing whatever last year. They seem to have buttoned up a few things. All that being said, the Browns are still really good. They have a really talented roster. And the Browns, I expect them to play well as well. These are two of the most snake-bitten franchises in the whole AFC going up against each other. But I mean, none of those guys were even born when all the snake-bitten type stuff happened. So give me the Chargers in a squeaker that we might be talking about for a while.
I don't know if I completely agree about Brent Staley. I mean, the only really remarkable play that I saw in that game was the decision to do the quick punt toward the end of the game instead of actually kicking that long field goal. And I would imagine that might be the play that's actually gotten the Chargers out of the basement of the NFL in special teams DVOA. They're up from 32nd to 31st. Which is still not good, need I remind you.
Who's 32nd now, then? Is it Jacksonville?
Atlanta.
Oh, yeah. There.
Probably didn't help that they gave up an opening kickoff return touchdown to start the second half against the team.
That's, going to hurt you. Yeah, Evan, you're right. These are two of the more snake-bitten franchises in the AFC, but neither team is really feeling that right now. Both teams should feel pretty good about where they're at. The Chargers, and the main reason is because they have good quarterbacks. Justin Herbert is a bona fide star. And while I wouldn't necessarily put Baker Mayfield at that level, he's pretty good too. He's certainly solid enough to be a franchise quarterback, and that's something that, the Browns have obviously been missing for a long time. And I do agree, after we knocked Brandon Staley last week for some of the interesting decisions that were made late in the game, he's shown a lot of, for lack of a better word, balls. I mean, the 4th and 2 play that he drew up, or he didn't draw it up, but they ran out there in their own territory after giving up 2 unanswered touchdowns to the Raiders, who looked like they were going to come back. And it was 4th and 2, and he said, yeah, let's go for it. And it wasn't just some rinky-dink 2-yard play that they ran. They ran a play that said, hey, Jared Cook's got a good matchup. Throw him the ball. And Jared Cook was pretty well covered, and Herbert threw him the ball, and the defender made a nice play on it, and it didn't matter because they executed it so well. I mean, that's what good football teams do. But the reason why I went with the Chargers is because I am a little worried about Baker. This is the second week in a row that he's been a little off his game. I think it could be partially because of the injury he is still dealing with. I realize it's a left shoulder, which doesn't, it's not as obviously as impactful as a throwing shoulder, but he looks really, really good throwing the ball against Kansas City and against Houston. But then against the Bears, he was erratic at times, although he settled down in the second half. And against the Vikings, he was erratic all day, like uncharacteristically missing open throws. And I don't think it's just a matter of a bad day. I give Baker more credit than that. I think he's been affected by that injury somewhat. And honestly, if they weren't playing the Chargers and they had an easy game coming up where you could throw Case Keenum in there and say, hey, let's give Baker a week off to heal up, I would consider doing that if I was the Browns. Obviously, against the Chargers, you're not going to do that. You're gonna take your best shot and hope Baker can mend up and play well. But that worries me a little bit, so I had to go with the Chargers, even though I think in a vacuum the Browns are a better team.
I will say, though, Baker Mayfield certainly has star power, right? He's very famous.
He's got a lot of charisma. He's got all his progressive commercials, which are delightful.
I enjoy them.
I love his commercials. He's got leadership qualities. Like, he's clearly won over that locker room. Even in his second year where he was, for lack of a better word, bad. Like, he was outright bad that season. He still didn't lose anybody. The only people that they lost were Freddie Kitchens and some other coaches because they deserved to go.
Yeah.
But he has always kind of held that locker room, even in spite of some struggles at times.
On the point of you guys mentioning that these are two very snake-bitten franchises, two franchises that Marty Schottenheimer coached for a long time, had quite a bit of success with, but never enough to make it to a Super Bowl, much less win one. So definitely would like to see these two franchises have some sustained success, and they've got the quarterbacks to do it if they can keep them healthy and surrounded by talent.
And I think the Browns have the coach too. Like obviously Brandon Staley, jury's out. It's only his fifth game started.
I'm liking Kevin Stefanski.
Kevin Stefanski,
so far.
he's
been really
competent, which is an upgrade over his predecessor.
I mean,
and his predecessor's predecessor.
That too.
You could probably go back to a lot of predecessors.
It's a long list.
It might be Marty Schottenheimer.
Yeah.
No, Bill Belichick's on that.
Yeah,
list.
Bill Belichick. That's true, but.
I mean, he didn't really do a whole lot while he was in Cleveland, though.
He won a playoff game.
Went to the playoffs.
That's true. Fair point.
Won a playoff game.
49ers at the Cardinals, the other half of the NFC West that we alluded to earlier. This is our last Lone Wolf game to talk about of the week because Evan is going Lone Wolf on the 49ers with 4 points, while Eric and I have 13 and 12, respectively, on the Cardinals. So, Evan,
I'm feeling kind of worried now.
After everything that you said about my pick on the Bengals, what on earth are you smoking?
I promise I'm not a crazy person.
I am not a crook.
Convince me.
I don't believe. I mean, the Cardinals. I mean, nope. You can't tell me that you thought they would be the last undefeated team in the NFL, right? Like this.
Going
the fact
to the
that they're
season,
4-0. Yeah,
But I also don't think that they are a fake 4-0 team.
Oh, I'm not sold. I'm still not sold. I don't trust their defense. Kyler Murray, at least in the game against the Vikings, I want to say, very prone to mistakes. Just slinging the ball right at a defender. Just here, take the ball and take it to the house. Don't mind me. So this game is in Arizona, but I'm just not feeling the Cardinals. Don't forget who the Cardinals coach is. Your boy, Cliff Kingsbury. Like what? So something's gonna happen. He's gonna screw it up. And I think they're starting Trey Lance this week. The 49ers are. I think that Trey Lance.
So
will give
you
the
put
numbers.
points in the 49ers with the assumption that Trey Lance was going to start.
Yeah, I think
it's even crazier.
I was gonna say before I was interrupted. I think he gives the Niners a little spark, and they can get some stuff going. So give me the Niners.
I'm feeling very comfortable with my 12 points on the Cardinals right now.
I'm not feeling the Cardinals. They're,
I mean, I would feel better if Jimmy Garoppolo was still starting, just because I think that Shanahan's going to rework that offense to tailor it to Trey Lance's skill set, which means it's going to be something we haven't seen before, which can throw a team for a loop for a week, and so that creates a little bit of unpredictability.
It's also probably not going to be that successful because, not only do I not think Trey Lance is that good, but even if Trey Lance is good, right? Even if he actually is good, and I'm completely off base on that, he's not going to be good from day one. It's going to take some time to actually grow him within whatever offense they do. He's going to be making mistakes early on.
Probably, but we've also seen guys have a really good first game, and then there's a little bit of tape on them, and then they stink.
Well, he's now had his first game. I mean, he played most of that game.
Yeah, but
he played enough that he scored like 20, 25 fantasy points or something. I know, again, it's fantasy, sure, but he played enough to score a lot of points.
Okay, but
there's tape on him.
Yeah, but again, I'm not saying that there's no tape on him. I'm saying the offense is going to be run differently, and I think that's going to potentially make things a little more interesting. Now, I put a lot of confidence on the Cardinals too, because I don't really like what the 49ers are doing. I think their defense has been a bit
very underwhelming.
Yeah, a bit underwhelming. They didn't do what I expected them to do against the Packers, which is, stop them sometimes. They failed to do that.
The 49ers defense ranks 16th in DVOA.
It's impressively mediocre.
Yeah.
So that leaves me
24th in special teams DVOA.
And I just can't pretend like what the Cardinals did on Sunday didn't happen, which is they took what looked like the most complete team in the NFL and utterly dismantled them. Like, they completely outclassed the supposedly superior LA Rams. Like, it wasn't an accident. It wasn't some magic. There was no Hail Mary here. It was one team going into another team's stadium and saying, hey, we're better at this football thing than you, and we'll prove it right now by kicking your ass for 3.5 hours. That's what the Cardinals did. If you put the 49ers in that situation, they get blown out, period. So I don't care who's under center. I got to feel good about the Cardinals because they actually look the part of a good team. They're not just pretending to be one on TV like the 49ers are.
And for additional reference, the Cardinals right now, their offensive DVOA, they rank 6th. Defensive, 6th. Special teams, 3rd. All of those ahead of the 49ers. Now, their past schedule rank is only 29th. So they've played the 4th easiest schedule up to this point. But the 49ers are only 24th. So their schedule has not been that much harder than the Cardinals. And yet the Cardinals have been much better than the 49ers so far. So, again, I am not sweating at all with my 12 points on the Cardinals. So that will bring us to the final 2 games of the week, the primetime games. We've got a treat this week with some good primetime games. Obviously, tomorrow night, we already talked about the Rams and the Seahawks. Sunday night, we've got the Bills and the Chiefs. That should be a really fun one. We saw that in the playoffs last year. It wasn't really that great of a game last year in the playoffs, but it could be better this year, especially the way the Chiefs' defense has been playing. The Chiefs right now, I think they're ranked number 1 in offensive DVOA and number 32 in defensive DVOA.
Goodness
God.
Gracious.
Yeah. Talk about 2 sides of the ball.
It seems like they're almost like the 2018 Chiefs, where it was Mahomes' first year as a starter, and they scored on everybody through 50 touchdown passes, but they couldn't stop anybody, so they ultimately didn't make the Super Bowl.
Yeah. So I've got the Chiefs, low confidence, 1 point. Evan's got the Chiefs, low confidence, 2 points. Eric's got the Chiefs, medium confidence, right in the middle at 8.
Yeah, I do.
Explain yourself.
The Bills aren't going to stop Patrick Mahomes. That's that.
The Bills have a decent defense.
They haven't stopped anybody good all season.
And the Chiefs aren't going to stop anybody on that offense. The Chiefs won't stop Devin Singletary.
Really? Okay, so you've got Devin Singletary, and I've got Patrick Mahomes. And
Well, I think Cory means
it's not just Devin Singletary. Obviously,
the
it's
Chiefs
also
won't
Josh
even
Allen.
stop.
Josh Allen's been booty this year.
Did you see him? Like, what about against the team? I think he just scored again.
Yeah,
Remember
and
that?
what about the other 3 games where he didn't look any good? Even against the Dolphins, who they
It was
housed.
35-0.
And it was not because of him at all. The numbers showed it. We discussed it.
Zach
Josh
Moss
Allen,
was a pretty big part of that
Josh
game.
Allen did not play well against the Dolphins. So the reason why they're 4-0 is because They're not even 4-0. They're 3-1. They lost to Pittsburgh. Okay, what am I supposed to be impressed by with the Bills? They played 4 bad teams and they beat 3 of them. Okay, so what? Sorry.
I mean, the Bills. I think this is going to be a great game. It's going to be close, and I picked the Chiefs because they're at home. But like, the Bills annihilated the Texans as they should have. They annihilated the team as they should have. That's what good teams do. Is they crush bad teams like a grape.
And you know what happens to good teams too? They go into Arrowhead and get their teeth kicked in, just like the Bills did last January.
Yeah, but it's not last January.
You're right.
Anymore.
Josh Allen's playing a lot worse. So there you go.
I mean, he's been slinging it the last couple weeks, and the Chiefs' defense
slings it a lot.
Yeah, the Chiefs' defense is garbage. So he's going to be basically out there unopposed.
I'll take my chances.
I picked the Chiefs as well, but I think Mahomes with the ball late.
I think people have gotten a little.
Honestly, if anything, right now I'm kind of regretting not picking the Bills, but
I don't think you're going to regret it come Sunday because
we'll
I'm pretty sure the Bills are going to get exposed.
Finally, Monday Night Football. One team that our listeners may be like, okay, wait a second, you guys missed a team. Evan's Ravens are playing in prime time Monday night. No Peyton or Eli because apparently they're off until week 7. What the hell is up with that, ESPN? Every week we want 17 weeks of commercial-free 18 weeks of commercial-free football and 17 weeks of Peyton and Eli.
Or how about just get Peyton and Eli in the booth? Just
I mean, I'd be okay with that too, but I kind of like them like in their houses.
Why can't they at least be together?
Well, because they don't live together. That'd be weird. Since Step Brothers. Have Archie
but they're
there
actual
too.
brothers.
Yeah, but they're also successful adults. They're not losers that are unemployed.
They have one week where they're like building a bunk bed while they're watching the game. So much room for activities.
So many activities.
I mean, all I'm saying is they could at least be in a studio or in one of their basements or something.
I think they live in the same state as each other, though.
Peyton apparently is out in Colorado.
Yeah.
He's got the marijuana dispensaries and Papa John's next to them to run, doesn't he?
Yes, he does.
Yeah. So Evans Ravens are hosting the Indianapolis Colts on Monday Night Football. The Colts are not a garbage team, but they're also not a very good team right now. We all are pretty confident that the Ravens are going to win this game. Eric and I have 14 points. Evan basically picking the Colts by only putting 13 on his team.
Yeah. I mean, just watching this Ravens team, I just get so nervous watching them. Like, I watch them so closely, and I just see so many flaws. And I'm like, oh no, they're gonna screw this up, and this, and this, and this, and this guy's hurt, and this guy's hurt, and this guy's hurt, and Harbaugh's going for it on 4th down too much.
Well, Rashad Bateman is expected to make his debut this week.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. I mean, the Ravens should beat the Colts by 2 scores. They should, but and Carson Wentz sucks. I don't even know who the top Colts receivers are. It's like, where is T.Y. Hilton? He's went away. Something happened to him. The Colts defense hasn't been as good as expected. Quentin Nelson is out with something else.
Yeah.
So the Ravens should win. It's at home. Stadium's going to be rocking. Everybody's going to be all jacked up from being in the parking lot all day. So, it's all about your team's execution, right? If you're supposed to be a good team, the Ravens act like they want to be Super Bowl contenders. They need to annihilate the Colts. They should crush them. There's no excuse not to.
All right, so let's go ahead and get to our playoff eliminations. Last week, I had the first pick. I chose the Atlanta Falcons. They've now been eliminated by all 3 of us. Evan had the second pick. He took the New York Jets, who I had also eliminated already. And then with the third pick, Eric eliminated the Jaguars, who Evan had already eliminated. So we're getting to that point where we can start eliminating teams that other people have already eliminated and makes sense to do so. But Evan, you won our host contest this past week. James Daly and Sean Kennedy both finished ahead of all 3 of us. with 102 and 101 points, respectively. None of us cracked 100. Even after texting your sister, she did not put any picks in.
No, she
for
didn't.
The third week in a row. But Evan, you did win our contest just among the podcast hosts. So you get to pick first this week. So far, you have eliminated the Houston Texans, the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Atlanta Falcons, and the New York Jets. Who are you taking this week?
This is the easiest pick ever. Give me the Detroit Lions.
So the Detroit Lions have now been eliminated by all three of us. So there you go. Eric.
Were they the first team to get eliminated by all three of us?
No, the Falcons had already been eliminated by all three of us when I picked them last week.
Okay.
Eric, you've got the second pick.
Yeah, it's time for me to cash in my New York Jets chip.
There you go.
They gotta go.
Yep, so they have now been eliminated by all three of us. And just to go ahead and make this as boring of a segment as possible, I'm going to do the same thing, eliminate somebody that both of you two have already eliminated, and that is going to be the Jacksonville Jaguars. So,
alrighty.
There we go. Those are our eliminations for this week. Evan's got the Lions, Eric's got the Jets, and I've got the Jaguars. That's pretty much going to wrap up things, I think, for us tonight. I know that we all want to try and get over to watch the National League wild card game between the Cardinals and the Dodgers. Big game there. They are well into
Cardinals
that game at this point.
1-0.
Yeah,
but
we are
Dodgers
into the third inning, bottom of the third inning. In fact, it's 1-0 Cardinals, but the Dodgers have the bases loaded with one out and a 3-2 count. So Eric might end up staying here and watching at least the end of the inning once I turn that on. But before we wrap up the show, any shout-outs from you guys?
Yeah, I got a couple. I'm going to give a shout-out to Kyle Seager, who likely played his final game with the Seattle Mariners. He'd been there since 2011. He'd obviously been a very good player for them, a couple All-Star appearances, and he was very emotional as he walked off the field for the final time at T-Mobile Park. And one more shout-out to Dave Sims, who was the announcer for the Seattle Mariners for their local broadcast. Sims and I go way back because I've watched a lot of Mariners games with him at the call, especially after Dave Niehaus passed away. And he has been dealing with a lot of pain of rooting for the Seattle Mariners, and yet he has not lost his enthusiasm, as was seen in that clip on Twitter of him being all fired up when Mitch Haniger knocked through the go-ahead base hit in the penultimate game of the Mariners season to keep their slim playoff hopes alive, at least for a little while longer. So shout out to him, shout out to Kyle Seager. Hope you guys have continued success, whatever you guys are doing, and hopefully you're listening to this show to hear it, and you can tell your friends.
Evan, any shout outs?
No, not only shout-outs, but an update. So you just said the bases were loaded in the third inning. Trey Turner grounded into a double play to end the inning. Still 1-0 Cardinals.
Oof. That's a rough one.
I think the Dodgers are going down. I think it's over.
That just feels like they're going to lose.
Yeah. My shout-out for this week will go, I've had a few of these already this fall, but my cross-country team continuing to do big things. We finished second place at the Arundel Cross Country Invitational this past week. Guys are running really well. I'm really proud of the work they've been putting in. This week, keeping it low key, we're running at the College Park Run. So any people in the College Park area who enjoy running, come on out. You can actually register. It's a free race that they do every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. at the Paint Branch Trail right behind the Ritas in College Park. You can come run if you'd like, or just support the team. But we'll be out there. I'll be racing this weekend, so I'm looking forward to that. I've been training with our guys, and I'll be interested to see what kind of time I can pull. I expect I'll probably finish behind our top two runners, but maybe ahead of everybody else.
What is the distance on that?
It's a 5K.
Okay.
Yeah, it's 1.55 miles out and back on that trail. So you get almost to where like the IKEA and that shopping center are along that trail. Like you run past the golf course and everything, and then there's a turnaround point where you come back.
Okay. Is there a chance that I remember one time, when I was on the cross country team, Shaper had like a scrimmage type race against another school, and all of y'all just ran off into the woods, even though we started at the same time. It looked like everybody else was shot out of a cannon except me, just plodding along. And then by the time I get done with the run, I asked Shaper what my time was, and he had already stopped the watch.
Jeez. Yeah, no, we make sure to get everybody's times. In fact, we'll have people at the 2 mile mark to get their 1 and 2 mile splits along with their final times.
Okay.
So we
count
get
up
that
to
for
12
all of our
minutes
athletes.
per mile.
My goodness. So yes, that's my shout out. If you have made it this far, first of all, thank you for listening. We appreciate your all support. Leave us a review if you're listening on Apple Podcasts. There's a place right there for you to leave us a rating and a review. We would certainly appreciate that a lot. Always enjoy hearing from our listeners. It's been a little while since we've gotten a review, but certainly we would read it on air if you would like us to. You can subscribe to our podcast. Smash that subscribe button if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or Amazon. If you like a different podcast host, let us know. We can work on getting our show on there. We also do have a YouTube channel. You can email us, thesportsballers@gmail.com, with any mailbag questions. It's been a minute since we've gotten mailbag. Last year we had them pretty much every week of the NFL season, and we have not heard from our main listeners of the show, Sean, Andrew, James, Rashonda. Where you at? Send us some mailbag questions. Follow us on Twitter at SportsBallers18. You can also follow us individually. I am at Cory Puffett. Eric is at Quagmire67. And Evan is at Evan_Ash13. Pretty active on there, and always enjoy feedback and whatnot. That will wrap up this week's show. This has been episode 163 of the Sports Ballers podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll be back, Eric, Evan, and I, with another show for you next week.